Okay.
We can start talking race fuel. We got 4 people now.
Oh, where do you see this?
Right here.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah.
Hey.
I guess to start off with,
We should have prepared a little better.
Christy Thomas, and WAHOO Running is the name of our company. And Lisa.
I'm Lisa Braden, and I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm just here to answer all of those burning questions that you have about fueling during your race, or I've gotten a lot of questions lately about, how to figure out what's going to work for you and have your tummy not be upset. So we can kind of talk through options on that, or just fire away questions. We didn't really have any prepared remarks. We have a bunch of prepared items if we need to go through some of those. Oh, here we go. It's Carly coming from Tony. So yeah, we may just give you guys a minute to figure out how to get on there.
Just to recap, because a few people have joined since we opened up. If you're on your mobile device and you have the YouTube app, that will let you ask questions. Just if you're going through a browser, there's not the capability of asking questions, or at least not that we found when we tested this. And then also if you're on your desktop or laptop, that will help you ask questions. And so just typing in your questions, that'll help us answer whatever it is that you have.
Because when you click on the link, if you're on your phone, it'll send you to your browser. But hopefully you can, if you have the YouTube app, open it through that, if it gives you the option, and then you'll have the chatting feature. We're losing people by the minute.
Well, we probably lost Carly because she was logging in as Tony. So.
Can you guys send dinner for my kids? Is that Tony or is that
That's Carly? Tony doesn't have kids. So.
I made a meatloaf, but it doesn't travel well. Sorry.
I'm staying.
I did make some really good granola though, so.
It doesn't have jelly in it.
No.
My fears are. Well, I would say, hi, Hillary.
Hey.
And it helps too if you guys log on and just let us know. Hey, Allison.
Hey.
All right. So if you have specific questions that you want answered, otherwise, I think a good place to start is to talk about, I guess.
Oh, there's Sarah.
Sarah, hey. Yeah. A good place to start is the impact that Lisa has made on my running and on Carly's running. I've been running marathons for 25 years, and I've toyed around with fuel, but I've never put a great emphasis on it. I have always just thought I need Gatorade, Powerade, and then maybe a GU or 2. I've never really calculated it, never paid that much attention. And just this past fall, Lisa came to me before the New York City Marathon and said, hey, Christy, I want to experiment with you. And she knew I would be willing to try whatever. I'm at my age, I'm like, anything can help. So might as well just go for it.
She's up for experimentation.
I am. I'm open for experimentation. So Lisa came to me and she did a race plan for me, and it outlined what I needed to eat for breakfast. We touched on what I needed to eat the 2 days before, but we didn't really dive into that as much as race day. So on race day, she emphasized I needed to eat breakfast that had carbohydrates, some protein, and I don't know if you said fat, but I did have some fat in there, 2 hours before the race. And then about 30 minutes before the race to eat, I ate one of those honey stinger waffles.
These are nice.
I ate one of those 30 minutes before the race. And then I carried the Univad stuff, the drink, the powder. Yeah. I carried this, and it wasn't this flavor, but it was this.
It's basically like a Gatorade mix. Yeah. Equivalent, like electrolytes, carbs, that kind of stuff.
So it is 500 milliliters, 16 ounces.
Yep.
500 milliliters, 16 ounces. Roughly. I carried this with me for the first 6 miles. And I'm not used to carrying something with me, but one of the advantages of doing that is that you avoid water stops. And the beginning water stops tend to be more crowded just because of the amount of people that are at the start. It doesn't start to, spread out until, well, at New York, it never spread out, but in most marathons, it starts to spread out around probably the 10K mark. You start to get some space. So I carried this with my electrolyte drink, my Unived drink, and drank that, sipped on that for the first 6 miles. And then we started alternating with, I did choose, I did the Honey Stinger. Honey Stinger just ended up being the brand. I like the pink lemonade. And so at mile 7, so we started going every 2 miles. So that was about every 15 minutes roughly, at the pace that I was running. I would have 2 chews. And then I like having some real food. And so upside down fig bar. I ate a fig bar. I didn't eat this particular brand, this Nature's Bakery. I ate the Newman's fig bars, but I had 2 fig bars at mile 9.
You get a little bit more carbs and less volume with the other ones. That's why we just made that switch.
And then went back to the chews and ate 2 more chews at mile 11. Mile 13, I had the goo.
This?
No, that's not goo. Yeah.
You ate this?
No. Is it? No, this is different.
Yeah, that's the butter.
Oh, no.
I don't know if we have a.
I bought one.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. I call it my coffee break. It's cappuccino, or what's it? Espresso cappuccino. So I had that about mile 13. And then I alternated back through the chew, the Fig Newtons, the chew, and then anything I had left over at the end, like towards the home stretch, I would just pop in my mouth if I felt like I need it. Oh, hot shot was another thing.
Oh, yeah.
One marathon that I ran was a downhill marathon in Utah, and I cramped up really badly because of the downhill motion and the way my gait is. It just really affected my calves. And so I had read about this stuff. It's spicy and sweet, and it's kind of nasty. But there's something about the neurological.
Kind of sounds like a marathon. Spicy, sweet, and a little nasty.
Yeah,
it works.
Exactly. Yeah, so it goes well with marathoning. But the spicy, the cayenne. I don't know what George is saying over there.
We'll get to the questions in just a second.
The spiciness of this it somehow interrupts your neurological pathways, and so the messages that your brain is sending to your muscles to cramp, this supposedly interrupts it, and it did work. The second time I ran that same marathon, I started to cramp, and I took this hot shot, and it stopped, or it didn't stop it completely, but it did not get to the point where I could hardly move my legs, which is how it was. The other
thing that can disrupt it is actually pickle juice. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to recommend that, but apparently it has the same effect. So who knows? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So that's it. I mean, this is kind of my collection of what I ate. Oh, and then my secret is about mile 20, 22. Mouth kind of gets gummy, especially after having all the sweet stuff. And these peppermints are known to lessen perceived exertion. And so it just kind of freshens everything up, and it just revitalizes you a little bit and get a little pick-me-up, a treat towards the latter miles of the race. So
right. And so, with the marathon, what you're trying to do essentially is you can hold on to a certain amount of carbs. You can store a certain amount of carbs on your body, and you're going to burn a certain amount of carbs in a marathon, but you can't store enough on your body to make it through the end of the marathon. So that's why we eat all the way through, and we try and kind of front load that. So the hope is that by mile 20, 22, 23, we're done eating, we've fueled well, and you can just basically sprint to the finish. But also with the peppermints too, like if you get to a point at any point in your race, because what your body is trying to do is, like, as your glycogen, which is the storage carbohydrate, is used up, your body starts to kind of shut down, because it's like, oh, I don't have enough carbohydrates to keep going at this pace. So you start to slow down. But even like popping a peppermint or swishing Gatorade in your mouth, the presence of carbs in your mouth can tell your brain, like, oh, I've got something coming in, I'm going to release a little bit more. So it's all kind of a defense mechanism that your body is using. so that you don't keep running, because it doesn't know the difference between, 26.2 or 50 miles or whatever. It's just trying to protect itself from running out of carbs. So that's why we have to keep a constant stream of carbs so that your body doesn't start to shut down, which is called hitting the wall, basically, is when your glycogen is up and you just can't keep up anymore. So a few questions have come in. One was from Hillary. Do you prefer that brand to Noon? That's what I've always used. I think Carly is a Univet athlete, so she gets a lot of that stuff from them. I personally don't like Noon. I don't think it tastes very good. But when you were at a race, you have the option of carrying stuff with you, but only to a certain extent, because in a marathon you need quite a bit of fluids, and so you kind of are at the mercy of whatever they're serving. So when we were at Austin, the marathon, they were doing Noon, so we did that. And then, but most races either have Powerade.
I did not do that. I'm not a big fan of Noon either.
I really just wanted a taco, but they didn't have those either. So but most races are either Noon is getting bigger, Gatorade, or Powerade. So I would suggest whatever race you're going to do, make sure you know ahead of time what the drink that they're offering and practice with that, because unless you're going to carry something the whole way. And for a half, that's feasible, but for a marathon, you have to carry quite a bit of liquid, especially if it's in a hot race. So hopefully that answers that question.
If you have someone that's spectating, one thing Lisa did
I forgot my Morton. Yeah.
For me and for Carly and our friend Lauren at CIM, we ran CIM in December. She spectated and helped us, and she had our fluid replacements for us at mile 7 and mile 11.
About halfway, and then at 20 again. So it was about every hour-ish, maybe every 45, 50 minutes I was there. And the reason we used Morton over what was offered was because what we were testing with Carly, because 900 calories or 900 to 1,000 wasn't enough for her in New York City. She still ended up with some low blood sugar at the finish. And so we tried to up that calories, but it's really hard. When she was already eating every 2 hours and getting all the fluids that she needed. So it was really hard to figure that out. And Morton sells basically a double concentrated Gatorade. So we handed those just to get in the extra carbs and calories that she needed. And that worked out really well. So it just kind of depends on what you need and what you like, what you tolerate, and then what the race is offering. Do you take a fanny pack for all that? And that is an excellent idea. There are a lot of people with fanny pack type things. We just use big ass pockets. And that seems to be okay. And then I looked a little funny at CIM because I had a full backpack full of liquids, and I was at certain points trying to jog to find them. And so that was interesting. There was a lot of sloshing. But yeah, fanny pack, sure, why not? Why do you alternate carb sources? So each different type of carb is absorbed through a different channel in our body. So glucose, table sugar, glucose polymers, or fruit sugar, all those different things, they're all absorbed a little bit differently. And so if we take in different alternating sources of carbs, then nothing is getting backed up, and everything is kind of the optimal way to get all of those carbs and use them effectively without getting any GI distress, basically. So
I'm a believer in that.
Yeah, I think that's one thing to watch out for if, say you're drinking Gatorade and using Gatorade gels and using Gatorade chews, you have to make sure that they've switched up some of those carb sources, because it's important to make sure you're kind of mixing those up, because that's typically, if you overload yourself with a certain amount of carb that you can't digest, then that turns into a porta potty stop. So we always want to avoid those if we can. Let's see. If you don't already, would you please put these fuel options? Yes. So one thing I'm working on in Mighty Networks, hopefully I'll have something up and started by Friday, is we got a bunch of samples of things. It's quite a lot. So I'm going to start basically a product index of things. So we're just going to kind of like our training plan, we'll just each lesson will be a different product that you can go in. I'll tell you what the carb sources are. We can talk about what it's used for. And then in the comments, people can leave suggestions on, did I like this? Did it work for me? That kind of stuff. So that will be coming to Mighty Network so that you can use that. Let's see. Oh, Carly has a caveat. She says that I'm a Univet athlete and I choose to use them to fuel me because I like it, not just because I get it from them. So, got it.
They should be able to see that stuff too.
Oh,
I think so. I'm not sure, but yeah, I assume you can see all of the chat stuff.
Yes, I'm learning so much about technology today. Okay, I started putting coconut water in my water bottle for long runs. So coconut water has a lot of natural electrolytes, so it's a pretty good electrolyte replacer. What I don't know off the top of my head is what the carb count is for that. So we'd have to look that up. You might find it on a calorie counting app. I can look on my phone too. So that would probably be the only difference because it has a lot of natural like sodium, potassium, all of those things that you would find in like a Gatorade or something like that. And even has higher levels, I think, of certain electrolytes. So that's a fine replacer. What I don't know about it is carbs. And so we'd have to see what she's looking it up for me. And coconut water, so coconuts can sometimes be a natural, not diuretic, that's not the right word, but it can be like a natural laxative for some people. So coconut water is a little bit separate from that because they take out some of the fat and stuff like that. So you just have to watch out and make sure at the level that you need for a race that it's not going to cause you to go to the porta potty. The other thing is as far as digestion goes, so at a marathon pace, if you're truly running your true marathon pace, hold on. Yeah, so what's the serving size? 1 cup. So it's got 9 grams of coconut water is 9 grams of carbs per cup, where Gatorade has more like, I think 13 or, let me look. Oh, this is low sugar.
The other one's not.
Yeah. So how many ounces is this? 20. So hold on, we're gonna have to do some math.
Lisa's an athlete.
So yeah, so 9 grams of carb per cup of coconut water, where Gatorade has something more like 14 or 15. So in 1 cup, that doesn't sound like a big difference, but if you're drinking, 8 ounces every, 2, 3, 4 miles, that can add up in a marathon type setting. So, but if your carb load isn't as high as somebody else's, that might work as well. So if it works for you, I say go for it. We just need to make sure that you get enough carbs, because you could do like coconut water for the electrolytes and then choose for the carbs or something like that. So it's a little bit less than that. I think. Yeah, so it's pretty typical. Allison, I'm reading your comment about the honey stinger chews and it hit you towards the end. Yeah, that's pretty typical. That's why I like to mix it up because digestion, especially, so I was kind of talking about if you're running your true marathon pace, you can digest pretty well. But as you get into the faster speeds, like half marathon pace, and you don't really need to fuel during a 10K or 5K, but the faster you run, the more your GI system shuts down for digestion. So you really need to make sure that you've tested your products at a marathon pace and at a half marathon pace. Marathon pace should be okay, but the half marathon pace can get kind of tricky because your energy available for digestion goes down because you're using it to go faster. So sometimes that can equal diarrhea, in all honesty. So,
but isn't there magic in the 2-hour mark? Like our bodies can store 2 hours worth of glycogen.
Yeah. So for a half, you don't necessarily have to fuel as much for a marathon because you're only out there for a half versus a full. So you can usually like front load for the first hour and then be fine. We just have to kind of do that math depending on how much you weigh. The more you weigh, the more carbs you need. So Allison, somebody from like you could probably get away with just a couple of chews or 1 gel or some coconut water, things like that. How do you figure out how many calories you need? It's a good question. It's kind of honestly, it's kind of a guessing game. So there's calculations that are there for how much you burn based on your size and your weight and things like that. But the glycogen is kind of a guessing game. There aren't really any good studies that tell you like, okay, Christy stores 1,500 calories worth of glycogen and I store 1,100. But I generally just kind of estimate based on size and what I think based on what I know about the athlete. So those calculations that I do are really individual. The other thing you can do is just go by grams of carb per hour. So or grams per carb per kilogram per hour. So for a half, like 30 grams of carb per kilogram per hour usually is enough. For a marathon, you can go like anywhere from 30 to 60 grams per kilogram per hour. The higher you can go higher, but you just have to test that for your digestion, because 60 grams of carb per hour during a marathon, sometimes it's a pretty high carb load, because what you're eating is fast, rapidly digested carbs. And if you overdo it, that's when, if you take in too much sugar, typically your body draws water into your intestines, and that's when you hit the porta potty again. We can see stuff.
No, it
yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading the question. So I hope that all makes sense. But yeah, that's why I typically I get my carbs through drinks, I get my carbs through real food, and I get my carbs through chews, because gels like goo, I had a nasty goo experience during a race, and so I've never done that since, because that for me, it's just too much of a carb load, and it just goes straight through me. So yeah, what other questions do you have? There's a 20-second delay, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I know Sarah has a race coming up. Who else has a race coming up?
So how do you suggest practicing this? So I would start practicing about maybe 6 to 8 weeks out from your race. On your long run, I would start getting together, like figuring out how many grams of carb per kilogram per hour you're going to take in. And then I would start practicing that. So I'd figure out what the drink they're going to offer is, if you're going to use that, figure out how many carbs you're going to get in, and start practicing that. Then there needs to be like 1 or 2 quality type workouts where you're doing race pace. And that may be in a long run, that may be speed work, but that's another opportunity, at least 1 or 2 of those times, to practice taking in your fuel at that race pace to make sure you can digest it. So, and then you should be good. So practice that. I would practice your minimum, your race day breakfast, and then your race day fueling throughout your long runs about 6 to 8 weeks before. We put the Christine Carly on the fast track because I got her plan, 3 weeks before,
Yeah.
And then Carly's maybe 2 weeks before. Feeling anxious to run one sooner.
Welcome to WAHOO. It's a sickness that runs rampant.
I know. Halves are fun too. I'd say jump in one, even if you don't, it's not a goal race. I think they're pretty fun. Halves are my favorite.
I think that's one distinction too to make, is that sometimes it depends on what your goal is as far as your fueling is concerned, right? So if you are just out there to complete the distance and you're not out there to push, then your fueling may look a little bit different than if you're out there to perform. And that's why you see a lot of like ultra distance people, they're going at a slower pace. So they're eating different types of food, right?
Yeah, sorry, I was reading a question. I missed that.
Oh, just the fact that what's your goal for the races will dictate how you. I mean, if you're out there just to complete the distance, you're not going to fuel the same as someone who's out to run a 1:30 or below. Right,
especially in a half. If you're just doing it to finish, I would just sip enough drink to stay hydrated. And then if you feel fatigue at any point, you could do peppermints or a chew or something like that. You can kind of dictate that in your race. If you're doing it to perform, then I would definitely do the calculations on the 30 grams per kilogram per hour. Is it 30 grams or is it just 30? I'm questioning myself. Anyway. But yeah, if you want to perform, especially in a marathon, you have to fuel. It's impossible not to. You will not perform at your best unless you fuel during a marathon, because you just don't have enough stored on your body to be able to finish strong. Allison's asking, so a question about baby food pouches. So baby food, I would make your own blend, because baby food is really high water content because they puree it and they add a lot of water, which is fine, but you just don't get a lot of concentration in there. I would be all for, that's actually what I'm going to play with this spring, is doing those reusable squeeze pouches or whatever, and make a little homemade baby food type of thing. Like instead of blending with water, you could blend with some sort of electrolyte drink, and that way you can kind of customize to what you want. The sweet potato thing I think sounds really interesting. The only thing I would worry about with the sweet potato is sweet potato has a lot of fiber in it. So I would take the skin off and I would just use the flesh of the sweet potato. And I would definitely mix that with some other kind of carbohydrate, because the sweet potato puree is a great source of carbohydrates, but it's a little bit slower digesting. So I think you need something in there that's rapid digesting as well. So I would put like brown sugar, or we had this conversation yesterday. Who put sugar on sweet potato?
But how can you put sugar on sweet
right.
potato?
So you could do a little sugar. You could do what else could you do? I mean, you could do
apple.
Yeah,
apple
you could do
sauce?
apple or banana, or something that's rapid. You could do honey, like something like that, or some like maple syrup, or you can actually even buy like powdered glucose stuff like maltodextrin. You can buy fructose powder. You can buy all sorts of different things. So I would play around with that as well. But if you're just racing a half, like I think sweet potatoes for that first hour would be a good choice, because I think but you probably have to get it in within like the first 30 to 50 minutes for it to work through that second half. Sarah says the applesauce pouches. Yeah, applesauce is a good idea. I would just mix it with something else. So I would do maybe like an apple banana puree, or what are some other, like even like an apple mango puree with a little rapid, something that kind of gives a little bit of body to it. Because those are only probably 40, 50 calories, those applesauce packets. So I don't know the carb content of it. So you probably just need a little bit more. And you could alternate those with like gummy bears or Fig Newtons or something with a little bit more substance. Let's see.
Sarah, I think Carly's talking about Boston, not Disney. I don't know if you think she's talking about Disney.
Hillary went to perform. I do think that even if you're not trying to PR or whatever, like food helps with performance, regardless of what you're trying to go for. And if you wanted to, like, if you don't have a goal race and you're just out there to test some paces or something like that, it's a great time to test race fuel as well. Yeah, so Sarah and I had a discussion over Mighty Networks a little bit. I hope you don't mind that I share some of this, but so there is a difference between slow digesting carbs and rapidly digesting carbs. So what we want to do, like pre-race, is we want to do more of the slow digesting carbs. So like whole grains, like oatmeal, toast, things like that you can digest really well, but also it's not like sugar where it's just kind of blowing through. So where we want the higher digesting carbs, like the sugars, the high carb gels and chews and things like that, we want to save that for the race day, because our digestion slows down a little bit and it kind of gives us that optimal boost during the run. So I think Sarah, we kind of talked about making that switch from a few of the breakfast to like more of a slow digesting oatmeal before. So hopefully that'll help. Yes, Allison, I agree. I think that the blend with the mango and the sweet potato would be a good idea. I would still add in something like some sort of carbohydrate powder in there to just have something rapid as well. Let's see. 5K is Saturday, marathon is Monday. What?
Yeah, they're talking Boston.
Oh, okay.
I think Hillary lives in Boston. So
I gotcha. Okay.
We'll see her there, and she's apparently running the 5K with you guys.
Yeah, I'll be running the 5K. My dad and my mom will be running the 5K, and then Carly will be running the 5K.
I'll be cheering my ass off for the 5K.
So let's see.
Applesauce, 80 calories, 19 grams of carbs. Sarah?
Oh, that's pretty good. How much of a serving size is that? Is that like one of those baby pouches? It's a pretty good source, actually. But if it doesn't feel like enough, I would blend it with something else. or eat something else.
I don't know if I could handle the texture.
Yeah, that may just be you.
I know. I'm just
No, I'm the same
expressing
way. I'm kind
my-
of a texture person as well.
I'm trying to think of that going in my mouth in a race, if I could handle that or not.
Yeah, what I would do is I would get like the flesh of a sweet potato or a banana, and I would blend it up with that applesauce, or even like some dates. Like you could put dates in there and blend that up with applesauce. That might be really good. Good. Yes, we all went to PR. Nice, Hillary. We're having side conversations.
I know.
Yeah.
So toddlers do have a race benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are good options. I just don't know if they're dense enough. You probably have to take in quite a bit because they water those down. The other thing you could do is just mix it with juice and like a date, and that might be. And they have reusable ones, so you can like load them in there and use those over and over.
What about gummy bears?
I like gummy bears. They just aren't as concentrated as other gels. So like,
I've heard a lot of people recommend.
Yeah, so you have to eat 5 gummy bears. Well, these are kind of concentrated for 22 grams of carb.
So
Yeah, sorry.
these guys.
And then for 24 grams of carb, you only have to eat 3 of these. So 5 gummy bears versus 3. So they tend to be like, I think they're a good source depending on what the carbohydrate source is. This is like rice flour. These are interesting. Cane sugar, gelatin, cornstarch. So these are going to be way different than anything like performance-wise because they don't. Performance-wise, they typically choose some sort of toast, but you can eat less of these and get more carbs than gummy bears. But you might tolerate gummy bears a little bit better. The other thing you can do or something like this, but again, so this whole packet is 19 carbs, and I think there's like 10 or 11 in there. So again, you'll just have to eat more, but these are good. They go down pretty easy. Yeah, I mean, same thing with jelly beans. I mean, why not? And they make like sport jelly beans that have electrolytes and that are built for marathon running. So I assume those are a little bit more concentrated. I've wanted to try those before, but they're kind of hard to find. So
let's talk caffeine.
Oh, caffeine, yeah. So caffeine is a nice performance enhancer if you can tolerate caffeine. I cannot. So it's good to do a couple of ways. It's good like about an hour before your race, you can caffeine load. So that can be through coffee, or it can be through something like, this is a salt cap, but they make like, it's caffeinated salt cap. So they make like caffeinated things. So you can actually just take the caffeine without having to deal with the coffee. Because sometimes the coffee in itself creates some pre-race poop, which can be good, but it can also be bad. So depending on how you handle coffee, about the equivalent, I think, a 12-ounce coffee or so gets you a nice boost of caffeine, and it takes about an hour to start. And then it kind of helps you. It just lowers perceived exertion and helps you kind of feel like you're running a little bit better. The other thing you can do is you can take it kind of towards the end of your race, like maybe because you took it, 2 hours?
Yeah, it was like either mile 13 or 15. I can't remember.
Yeah, so it's a nice little boost, like if you're like right before right when you're kind of hitting those tough miles where you're past the half, but there's kind of a lull before you get closer to the finish. So caffeinated gels are in there. There's a limit to caffeine though, and I think I put in the performance booster section under caffeine. There was a limit to how high you can go as far as milligrams before it starts to decrease your performance. So
unless you're Carly.
Yeah, true.
Shit can metabolize caffeine.
Right, which is, I mean, it's funny because genetically people can metabolize caffeine differently. And I think Carly is a super metabolizer because she can handle anything. I think Christy's kind of middle of the road. Like she can handle it, but probably not too much. For me, like if my barista gives me a full calf versus a decaf, like I can tell within about 3 minutes that I'm going to have a blood pressure issue the rest of the day. So I do not do caffeine. And actually the studies show that in the rapid metabolizers and the medium metabolizers, it's a performance boost by like 3 to 5, sometimes up to 10%. But in the slow metabolizers group, like me, which I've confirmed that I have the slow metabolizing gene, it's actually a detriment of about 10 to 15% if I took in caffeine, which is kind of a big deal. So 15% of your time is not something you want to shave off just because I accidentally took in caffeine.
Sorry, caffeine people.
I know. Sorry, Allison. You and I can be buddies because I can't do it at all.
Well, we got a lot of caffeine.
Yeah,
breakers.
I mean, most people know if they can't handle it, and that probably just means you have the slow metabolizing gene, which she does not. But a packet like that would probably, honestly, send me
100 milligrams.
It might kill me.
You want to experiment? I'm just kidding. No, I don't want to kill you.
Yeah, the other thing we have here is we've talked about beets on Mighty Networks. So
it's your phone. I'm looking at her.
I know. It's Avery's teacher. So beets are another performance booster, and but you have to eat quite a bit of beets or drink quite a bit of beet juice. I think it's I can't remember the weight of the beets off the top of my head, but it's like 2 cups of pure beet juice. But they make these nice handy little shots that you can take right before your race. That's equivalent. It tells me the equivalent on here. 3 organic beets per bottle. So that's going to taste amazing.
May drink it right now. I could do it.
Yeah. Well, hey, might as well. Sure. Might taste out.
Speed work is going to go great tomorrow.
There you go. She's also going to be peeing red for the next.
Yeah, you're not dying if you start peeing red.
Yeah.
That's part of drinking beets. Do you really care if I drink this?
No, not at all. They also make beet powder. So I know like Carly's husband, Bryce, uses it for their athletes. Like, what's it called? I can't remember.
Beet powder. That's what mine's called.
So they make all different variations of that. So you don't actually have to eat like 3 full beets or drink 500 mils of straight beet juice. Shots. Oh, Beet Elite. Yeah, thank you. That's what it's called. Oh my gosh. Did you just do the whole thing? She's such a beast. Oh my gosh. Look at your mouth. How is it?
It's tart. It's more tart. Yeah, it's tart. It's like they put some lemon in there or something.
Probably to keep the color. Yeah, it's lemon juice.
Yeah.
So filtered water, lemon juice, organic flavors, and beets.
Watch out, Track Tuesday. I'm coming for you.
You might have to do Track Tuesday at midnight because that's a better timing for this.
Let's go. Who wants to meet me at Norman High in 20 minutes?
Yep, CT does love her some beets. But other than that, I mean, does it taste okay?
Yeah. It didn't taste like dirt, like sometimes beets do.
So there you go.
Yeah.
An option for those beet haters like me that would never drink 2 drinks.
I'm not a fan of the lemon juice, though. That was a little shocking, but
it's probably just to preserve it without.
Make it pretty or keep it pretty.
Yes. What else can we talk about? I have used. Ooh, sorry. Jiggle. I have used this stuff in the past, which I think is kind of fascinating, and interesting. So, it's Killcliff Endure stuff. So it has a different, like a homemade carbohydrate called platinose. Basically, it's a slow release carb. Actually, I've run all my PRs using this stuff, and I have no idea why. But it's supposed to be like a slow release so that you can drink it and the carbs last you for a longer period of time. So sometimes you'll see ingredients like that or different combinations, like with Morton. Morton gel is pretty popular with the elites, and Morton adds pectin to their stuff, which like does some thickening aspect of it, but it also slows down digestion because Morton packs a ton of carbs into their drinks. But I think that it works because the pectin kind of slows down how that sugar hits your bloodstream. What else we got? Oh, did I knock something over? Yeah.
Yeah, Gatorade or something.
Yeah. So I mean, there's every brand makes their own form of gel. So there's a couple ways you can accomplish things during races. You can do water and gels. You can do like Gatorade and chews. But basically, what gels are for is it's like drinking Gatorade without the water. So like if you added water to this, it would probably have the same nutrition as something like Gatorade would, but it's just more concentrated. So there's stuff like that. There's some chews. There's all different, again, like almost everybody has their own brand of chews. Gatorade, Cliff Bars, these Bolt ones that have caffeine in them, which I learned the hard way. What else do we have? Oh, these are good too. Scratch Labs are good. And it's just kind of about, they're all similar. Just look at whatever carb source that they're using, and then check ingredients, because things like Scratch Labs and the Cliff ones have a little bit better ingredients as far as if you want to eliminate preservatives and things like that. What's it supposed to write here? Oh,
Both.
I think they might be bored with us. They're talking about other things.
Carly is. Scratch, I know, and Cliff both really take really good care, or they pay a lot of attention to the ingredients that they use. So a lot of cyclists are Scratch Lab fans. In fact, if you want Scratch Lab and you don't order it online, you go to bike stores and that's where you'll find it.
Yeah. Here's a good breakfast option. Picky Oats has some good performance oatmeal stuff. So like this adds beets into your oatmeal before your race. So you can kind of get that double benefit. Oatmeal is my favorite pre-race meal because that's what I practice with the most. And that's what's been, I either do oatmeal or toast and then bananas and things like that. So, and then I typically do something like this about 30 minutes before a race. So I usually get up 2 hours before, eat my slower digesting carbs like my oatmeal, my bananas, my almond milk, hydrate pretty well, and then do this as I'm like walking to the race because these go down really, really easy. Mm-hmm. And they're super sweet. So like 21 grams of carbs, and you can actually count this towards your carbohydrate goal for that first hour.
My favorite breakfast, we at New York, we had toast and eggs and oatmeal and just a variety of things. But typically, if I'm traveling to a race or I'm at home for a race, I'll bring my own toast and almond butter and jelly. Sometimes honey, just depends on what I feel like traveling with. But those almond butter toast is my favorite thing to have 2 hours before the race. I usually have 2 pieces of toast with a generous helping of almond butter and jelly on top or honey on top.
Yeah, and that's good because the further out you are from the race, like if you're eating 4 hours before, 3 hours before, 2 hours before, 1 hour before, the further you're out, the more fat and protein you can handle. So, 2 hours, once you're like 2 hours or below, I would go more strictly carbohydrates. But if you're like at that 2 hour mark or above, you can handle like some almond butter to kind of help make sure you're digesting all of that stuff. It slows down carbohydrate digestion a little bit with the fat and the protein, but that's good for that 2 hour mark because you're digesting for those full 2 hours, and then you start the race really primed and ready to go.
You are not the only half marathoner. We all love half marathons, and I definitely eat a little bit different, but my pre-race meal is the same.
Yeah,
I don't know if it should be, but it is. And I typically do everything that I do for a marathon. I just don't extend the eating out quite as long.
Yeah, because I mean, the point is on eating breakfast and everything leading up to it is to have a full glycogen store when you are standing at that line. So you've optimized all the calories that you can store. And that's important for half and for a full, but that's why you don't need as many carbohydrates during the half because it lasts half as long, and you still have, you have stored like 1,500 calories, whether you're at a half or a full. So yeah. Let's see.
Lauren Fleshman has a really good article in Runner's World. I think Lisa posted it, or Lisa showed it to me, and I may have posted it on Mighty Networks, but she just talks through how she was on a plane with a guy that was talking about almost looking down on her because she was a 5K runner, not knowing she's a professional runner and an amazing elite athlete. But he was like, oh, just hang in there. You'll get there. Like arriving at the marathon is the end all be all. And that clearly is not the case. And that's not our attitude here either. It just tends to be the preference of, it's my preference. I love that race because it teaches me more about myself than anything else in life.
That's true.
That's
exactly why I don't like it.
Yeah, there are a lot of lessons. Not that there's not a lot of lessons in a half marathon either, or a 5K. Heck, we ran 5Ks yesterday and there were some lessons in there too. So it's just, yeah, I think there's just
everything's a different beast, and that's why it's good to mix up the distances. Do 5Ks, do 10Ks, do halves, do marathons, because there's a place for all of that stuff. And there's lessons to be learned anywhere. I mean, 5Ks are typically a sufferfest, and that's really hard and hard to push through, where marathons are easier paces, but they last forever. So there's differences there. And I think every race should have kind of its own celebration within it. So I only did halves up until a year ago too. So once you join WAHOO, look out.
Dun, dun, dun. No, I think, heck, what do they say? Half marathons are twice the fun and half the distance. So I think people that run halves are smarter than people that run fulls. We've killed brain cells somewhere along the way.
Yeah. But I do think marathons are good to do because they do teach you a lot. Let's see. Tell me there was a raccoon spotting.
I know, I saw that. No raccoons. Is there anything else you guys want to hear about before we wrap this up? Because we're coming in on that 45, 50-minute mark.
Okay.
So.
Yep.
And we want to do more of these on different topics. So hopefully this is a good format. And then if you can't make it, you can always send in questions beforehand, and then we can send you the link. We'll post the link to this, so if there's anything you want to go back and watch that you felt was beneficial, or even if you want to share.
If you want to slow-mo her shotting the beet juice, that might be an option.
Yes. There's always got to be some memory marker in every broadcast. So, yeah. So, but you can send in questions. Also, if you want to share this with somebody at WAHOO, we're all about sharing and building each other up.
Great question. So, excellent question. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right.
So what do you recommend after a race? So I recommend, recovery is a huge, huge thing. So I remember at CIM, I was pleasantly surprised how well they did. But the thing that was most shocking to me is how quickly they recovered, because they fueled so well. And then we tried to get them to eat right after, because I think we hit Starbucks, right? And you got like an egg sandwich and some coffee or latte or something, right? Is that my imagination? Anyway.
I don't remember.
Okay. Memories are kind of fade after that.
Yeah. I remember I do remember going to Starbucks, but I don't remember eating.
Yeah. So within 30 minutes to 60 minutes, so like 45 minutes is perfect. So before an hour is up, we need to eat again. So I've made you eat all of these things for 3.5 hours. But that window, for whatever reason, our bodies are primed and ready to heal. So it does all of the healing, or the most amount of healing, in that first hour. So if you can get in like 100, 200 calories, mostly carbs, some protein, the perfect ratio is like 4 grams of carbs for every 1 gram of protein. But really, like, just eat like whatever they have. And typically they'll have like bagels and peanut butter or bananas, or if it's OKC, it's a Carl's Jr. hamburger. When I was breastfeeding, I took 2. And I was hungry. But anyway, so it's just really important to eat. So right after your race, because you'll recover quicker, you will be less sore. All of those things are really beneficial. The other times to do it on your really hard speed workout days and your quality runs. So like your marathon pace runs, or anything that's really hard or taxing during the week on your training, make sure you're eating before an hour is up. So like Picky Oats, they make Picky bars, which are exactly a 4-to-1 carb to protein ratio, and it's about like 150 to 200 calories, which is perfect. What else can you do? I mean, there's all sorts of, the bar aisle is endless. We have a few like protein performance bars. We've got RX bars. These are more like a 2-to-1 carb to protein ratio. But again, like, if this is what you like, eat it, because it really is just a matter of whether it's perfect or not. Like, you just need food in you, because it helps to bounce back that much quicker, and your muscles will be all the more healthy after that race.
Scratch bar 4-to-1? I thought you said the scratch bar had a good ratio.
Yes, I think you're right. So, yeah, so 30 grams of carb and 5 grams of protein. So that's a pretty good mix of carbs and protein. So something like this, like, I would recommend packing something in the car And if you can, or like a smoothie is great if you can have that waiting for you when you get home.
A latte?
A latte is great because typically it's like, 100, 150 calories, lots of carbs, protein balance there. So hit up Starbucks.
I think that's what we did after CIM. We got coffee.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we hobbled. I didn't hobble. Hobbled over there. And we got some stuff to eat and drink. Yes, good question, Hillary. A lot like Picky Oats or the Picky Bars have really clean ingredient list. I think Scratch Labs does as well. They're non-GMO, gluten-free, and I don't see any. They're all natural ingredients in there. So you just kind of have to find what you like. Garden of Life now makes a plant-based protein bar. And Garden of Life is really known for like their clean vitamins and things like that. So if you're going to try and find something, I would shop at like a Sprouts or a Natural Grocers or whatever you have. In Boston, you probably have tons of Trader Joe's. But that's why like chocolate milk they talk about chocolate milk is the perfect recovery food because it's exactly a 4-to-1 carb ratio and it goes down pretty easily. So yes, good. Garden of Life are great vitamins to take. Anything else?
That could be another topic is supplements.
Yeah, I think
supplements are overwhelming.
Yeah, overwhelming to me as well.
Yeah.
But I want enough of them.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, I think that we're going to wrap it up because we've been going for about 50 minutes.
Yeah, we'll give you like 30 more seconds if you have other questions because I think there's a little bit of a delay. But yeah. Yes, agree, Hillary. They are overwhelming.
Thank you guys for participating and making this special. Spread the word on Mighty Networks. Invite people. You have an ambassador or an ability to invite people through, and you can get credit. Like I said on one of my posts was, we're going to try to figure out some sort of a incentive because the bigger our community gets, just the more we'll learn from one another, and also just those connections around the running community really are special. Runners are special people, so we're thankful for you guys.
Yep.
We're thankful for Lisa, thankful for our dietitian. So Derek, dun dun dun.
Top 2 detox vegetable. I have no idea.
Detox vegetables. I'm gonna guess sweet potatoes and
I don't know about sweet potatoes. Everything is something green. Maybe spinach and
kale.
Oh yeah.
Anything that tastes like socks. I'm just kidding.
The greener it is and the worse it tastes, probably a good detox vegetable. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know much about like
detox
stuff. Yeah. I'm a little skeptical on that if I'm being honest. So, but I will ask.
I've heard that the more garlic you have to use with the vegetable, the worse, or the better the vegetable is for you.
That's probably a good rule of thumb. But spinach does blend up in smoothies really, really well. It kind of disappears if it's baby spinach, not frozen, but fresh baby spinach. Blends up in smoothies really well. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Why not frozen?
It's just concentrated and you get more of that spinachy flavor where the baby spinach disappears. It's kind of flavorless.
What if you freeze your own baby spinach? There's
something in the freezing process that kind of breaks it down and it doesn't quite do as well.
Sorry, kids. Because I usually get that big tub at Sam's and then I break it up into little baggies and freeze it because I don't ever eat all of it.
I mean, I think frozen baby spinach is better than like frozen concentrated spinach,
Gotcha.
But I don't think it still is the same. Or I haven't had good luck with it. Try for half marathon. Sarah, what do you want? Do you want like...
That's okay, Derek. We were just teasing about you being late. We'll send you the link to this so you can watch it.
Yeah, and just message me if you have questions about what we talked about. But yeah, Sarah, so I have kind of a finicky stomach and I tolerate the Cliff blocks really well, or have in the past. So it's tapioca. It's all organic tapioca syrup, organic cane syrup, some maltodextrin. Oh, this one has caffeine, which is probably why
the other one doesn't.
Yeah, they have some have caffeine and some don't. But there's no artificial colors, and there's just like a little bit of like salt and oil and some other stuff in there. So we can send those with Sarah. We just need to know
Scratch Labs, I bet, would be good.
Yeah,
for
I bet
you.
Scratch Labs would be good too. Or like fruit snacks or gummy bears as well. If you don't have to pack as much for half marathon, so you could handle a little less concentrated stuff. Fruit punch flavor stuff. Yeah, I think that should be fine. Can you tolerate caffeine, Sarah?
She said, I think she was in no
Were you a no caffeine?
Were you a no caffeine, or I don't remember.
I definitely wouldn't do gels.
Maybe it was just Hillary and Allison or no caffeine.
Okay. Oh, you know what though?
The Honey Singers.
You might try these too. These would be a good one. So we'll send those.
There's magic in the ginger ones because ginger is an anti-inflammatory. That's my belief, anyways. That's why I always
it's also
go for
an
the
anti-nausea, like
ooh, yeah,
anti-vomiting. So it helps. Ginger helps settle the stomach. So that's
we'll send a ginger one with you.
Yeah, we'll send a ginger one. We'll send some blocks without caffeine.
Scratch Lab, maybe.
Yeah, Scratch Labs. And then.
Oh, she loves caffeine.
Oh, well, I don't know.
And she eats them before the run. She does do caffeine.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so you can handle the caffeinated blocks. This would probably be the only gel that you might be able to try. So they add chia seeds to this, and chia seeds helps slow down digestion so it doesn't hit as fast and there's less chance of diarrhea. So if somebody's not tolerating gels and they want to go down, this gel is a little bit more easy to tolerate than say like a goo or something like that. If you can't tolerate this one, then we go to chews. And if you can't tolerate, and then chews, I usually mix with real food. So.
All right.
Sound good? Signing off?
20 seconds, we'll sign off.
Okay.
Because there's a delay of about 20 seconds, unless there's a question that pops up. Should we dance?
You're the dancer, not me. I need music.
The wave. Yeah, we need music for our live.
By the time I get music up. What do we want? 50 Cent?
Yeah. Give the people what they want. Any song requests from the audience.
Big Pimpin'?
My lands, you should see her playlist.
I know. Well, these are from CIM because we were trying to download them. California Love. Mm-hmm. I don't have the Greatest Showman on here. I have a diverse music.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Just none of the covers.
No.
All right. We're going to sign off.
We're done.
We'll spare you. Everybody have a great night.
Thanks
for those of you
in.
who can be there tomorrow morning, we'll see you at 5 a.m. at Norman High School. Some of us are getting there at 4:45. So we'll see you hopefully tomorrow. If not, then we will see you soon. Thanks for joining in. Bye.
Bye.